There's a question that has followed humanity since the beginning of conscious thought. Does God exist? For most of history, people assumed the answer was yes. Not because they had proof, but because they didn't have explanations for the world around them. When thunder shook the sky, when disease spread, or when crops failed, the easiest answer was that some invisible being was in control. The less we understood, the more room there was for gods. But as our understanding grew, something remarkable happened. Every time human knowledge expanded, the space for God's necessity shrank. This is not coincidence, it's a pattern. And today, after centuries of discovery, logic and evidence, that space is almost gone. So let's explore 15 powerful reasons, rooted in science, logic, and observation, why the idea of God simply doesn't hold up under scrutiny. The first reason is straightforward. There is no empirical evidence for God's existence. Not one verifiable, testable, repeatable piece of evidence that points to a supernatural being. Billions of people believe, but belief is not proof. Testimony is not data. And personal experience, no matter how sincere, is not the same as objective reality. We don't accept anecdotes as evidence for aliens or ghosts. Why should God be any different? Science operates on verification. Repeatable results, measurable outcomes, predictive power. Religion operates on trust, on authority, on just believe. The difference between the two isn't just a matter of method, it's a matter of truth. If an all-powerful being truly interacted with the world, we would expect some measurable footprint, energy, particles, something detectable. But after centuries of searching, in physics, biology, cosmology, we've found none. The second reason follows naturally. The argument from inconsistent revelations. If one true God existed, we'd expect consistency in messages and doctrines. Instead, we see thousands of religions, each claiming exclusive truth, each contradicting the others. The God of Islam denies the divinity of Jesus, while the Christian God demands belief in it. The Hindu pantheon accepts many deities, while monotheism insists there's only one. These can't all be true, yet they're all believed with the same conviction. The diversity of gods tells us more about human culture than divine reality. People invent gods in their own image, molded by geography, language, and history. Reason 3. The problem of evil and suffering. If a benevolent and omnipotent God exists, why is there needless suffering? Not moral struggle or character-building pain, but genuine, pointless agony. Children dying of disease, animals torn apart, innocent people living short, brutal lives. The standard excuse is free will, but that doesn't explain earthquakes, genetic disorders, or natural disasters. If God could prevent suffering but doesn't, he's not benevolent. If he wants to prevent it but can't, he's not omnipotent. Either way, the concept fails. Reason 4 is the argument from natural explanation. Over time, everything once attributed to God has been replaced with science. Lightning? Now electricity, disease. Now microbiology. Life's origin? Evolution. The more we understand, the less we need the divine hypothesis. God has never once been the correct answer, only the placeholder until real understanding arrived. Reason 5. Religion mirrors human psychology, not divine truth. Every culture invents gods that reflect human needs and fears. Protectors, punishers, creators, and comforters. The patterns are consistent. Gods punish bad behavior, reward loyalty, and provide meaning in death. These are emotional needs, not empirical truths. Belief in God fills psychological gaps. Fear of mortality, desire for order, hope for justice. But filling a need doesn't make the belief true. A starving man imagining food doesn't make the food real. Reason 6. Faith depends on geography, not truth. If you were born in Pakistan, you'd likely be Muslim. Born in India, Hindu. Born in America, Christian. Faith follows culture, not evidence. That alone should make any believer pause. If God's truth were universal, belief wouldn't depend on the accident of birth. Reason 7. Religion resists correction. Every genuine pursuit of truth welcomes revision. Science admits error. Religion condemns doubt. When new evidence arises, science adapts. Religion doubles down. The refusal to update beliefs is not a strength. It's a sign of ideology. A truth that cannot be questioned isn't truth. It's dogma. Reason 8. God is an unnecessary hypothesis. In philosophy and science, the principle of parsimony, Occam's razor, tells us to avoid multiplying assumptions. If the universe can be explained through natural processes, why invoke an invisible agent? We don't need a thunder god to explain storms, or a sun god to explain heat. In the same way, we don't need a creator to explain existence. The universe doesn't require divine permission to be. Reason 9. The universe looks exactly as it would if there were no God. It's vast, mostly empty, cold, and hostile to life. If it were designed for humans, it's an awful design. 99.999% of it instantly kills us. Stars explode, galaxies collide, and entire worlds burn out long before life begins. That's not intelligent design. That's indifference. Our planet is a fragile speck surviving by chance, not a masterpiece of divine intention. Reason 10. The concept of God is self-contradictory. All-knowing, all-powerful, and all-good cannot logically coexist in the world we see. If God knows everything, He knows every future event, including our choices, meaning free will is impossible. If He's all-powerful, He can prevent evil, yet evil persists. If He's all-good, He wouldn't create a universe with such cruelty. The attributes of God cancel each other out. The definition implodes under logic. Reason 11. The silence of God. If there truly existed a conscious, personal being who created humanity, loved us, and desired our devotion, then His silence would be the loudest mystery of all. People beg for divine guidance, for answers, for presence. Yet prayers go unanswered, tragedies unfold, and the world remains indifferent. The only consistent voice of God is human interpretation. Every claimed revelation or miracle occurs through fallible people, never through a clear, universal act that removes all doubt. If a God existed and wanted to be known, He could simply appear, unmistakably, equally to all. But we see nothing. Not a whisper that can't be explained by psychology or coincidence. Reason 12. Prayer doesn't work. Across history, billions have prayed for rain, for healing, for safety, for peace. Yet the outcomes match random chance. People recover or die. Storms come or go. Wars end or worsen. Not in patterns suggesting divine intervention, but in ways entirely explainable by probability. Controlled studies on intercessory prayer consistently show no measurable effect. When believers claim success, it's always selective memory. They remember the hits, forget the misses. The same success rate could be achieved by doing nothing at all. Reason 13. Religion thrives on fear, not truth. The idea of eternal punishment, hell, karma, divine retribution, serves one purpose: control. It keeps followers obedient through fear of what they can't verify. When you remove fear, belief weakens. That's not how truth behaves. Gravity doesn't threaten you for disbelief. Evolution doesn't punish skepticism. But religions do, because they depend on emotional manipulation, not evidence. The strongest beliefs are often born not from love of truth, but fear of loss. Loss of meaning, community, or comfort. Fear sustains faith more reliably than facts ever could. Reason 14. God's morality mirrors human morality, not the other way around. Religious texts claim divine moral authority, yet the morals change with culture. Ancient scriptures permit slavery, genocide, polygamy, and execution for minor offenses, all justified as God's will. As societies evolved, these were quietly ignored, reinterpreted, or dismissed as metaphor. But morality didn't come from God. It came from empathy, reason, and social cooperation, the same qualities found in other animals. We outgrew our gods ethically. We became better people than the deities we once worshipped. Reason 15. Religion explains nothing and complicates everything. When faced with hard questions, why the universe exists, why consciousness arose, religion gives the simplest answer: God did it. But that's not an explanation. It's a stop sign for curiosity. If everything needs a cause, what caused God? If He doesn't need one, then maybe the universe doesn't either. Invoking God adds an unnecessary step. It replaces one mystery with a bigger one. True understanding requires asking how, not who. These 15 reasons form a cumulative argument, not just against a particular God, but against the very necessity of gods. The evidence, logic, and patterns of human thought all point in one direction. that God is a human invention, born from ignorance, sustained by fear, and preserved by tradition. But let's go deeper, because disbelief isn't just about rejecting myths. It's about understanding why those myths persist and what they reveal about us. Across cultures, gods serve psychological and social functions. They give structure to chaos, meaning to suffering, and authority to leaders. They fill emotional voids, fear of death, uncertainty, loneliness. The idea of an all-seeing protector comforts people, especially in times of loss or confusion. That's why religion resists extinction. It's not based on truth, but on emotional utility. The brain craves agency. It struggles to accept randomness. When something terrible happens, we instinctively ask, why? And when no answer appears, we invent one. The universe doesn't owe us meaning, so we create one. But this need for meaning doesn't validate belief. It exposes our cognitive bias. Studies in psychology show how humans detect patterns even in randomness. We see faces in clouds, purpose in coincidence, destiny in chance. The same wiring that made early humans fear predators in the dark also made them imagine spirits in the wind. Religion is an evolutionary side effect of a hyperactive pattern detection system. The mind that sees purpose where there is none is the same mind that once kept us alive. But now, it traps us in illusion. Some argue that the sheer scale and beauty of the universe prove design. But beauty is subjective. It's the mind responding to order. A galaxy's spiral or a sunset's glow isn't evidence of intention. It's the brain finding harmony in natural law. The symmetry, color, and rhythm we admire exist because physics allows them, not because a mind created them. Beauty doesn't imply design any more than hunger implies divine cuisine. Another common argument is that morality proves God, that without a divine source, right and wrong would be meaningless. But this too collapses under scrutiny. Morality predates religion. Cooperation, fairness, empathy, these evolved because they benefited social species. Even primates and dolphins display moral behavior. Religion simply codified what evolution already encouraged. When you remove the divine command, morality doesn't disappear. It becomes more honest. We do good because it helps others, not because we fear punishment. Then there's the argument from first cause, that something must have started everything. But modern physics suggests that causality may not apply before time began. Quantum mechanics shows that particles can appear spontaneously from energy fluctuations. The universe could arise naturally from physical laws without any intelligent intervention. Nothing in physics isn't an absolute void. It's a state of potential, capable of producing matter and energy. The idea that everything needs a creator is based on human intuition, not evidence. And even if there were a creator, that wouldn't prove the gods of Scripture. A deistic force, an impersonal natural process, is not the same as a personal deity who watches, judges, and commands worship. Believers jump from something started the universe to, therefore my religion is true, a leap with no logical bridge. The truth is simpler and more profound. Existence doesn't require purpose. The universe is vast, ancient, and indifferent. We are its conscious accident, a brief flicker of awareness in a sea of energy and matter. That may sound bleak, but it's actually liberating, because when there's no divine script, we are free to write our own. Without God, morality becomes our responsibility. Meaning becomes our creation. Love, compassion, curiosity. These are not divine gifts. They're human achievements, and they mean more precisely because they're ours. When you remove the supernatural, what remains is reality, raw, complex, and astonishing. The atoms in our bodies were forged in dying stars. The consciousness that wonders about purpose emerged from billions of years of evolution. That's not meaningless. That's miraculous enough. The story of belief isn't just about faith. It's about how power, culture, and psychology intertwine to keep an idea alive, even when the evidence fades. To understand why so many still believe in gods that have no proof, we have to look at how those gods were built. Religion didn't descend from the heavens. It evolved from human society. Every civilization constructed its gods from the raw materials of fear, ignorance, and authority. When early societies began to organize, religion served a practical function. It unified people under shared myths. It provided social cohesion long before governments, courts, or education existed. But once rulers realized that divine authority could legitimize power, the idea of God became the most effective political tool ever invented. Kings, emperors, and priests claimed to rule by divine right. Their commands weren't just political orders. They were sacred laws. To question them was to question God. In this way, religion protected power, and power protected religion. Together, they created a self-reinforcing system of control. The divine wasn't just believed. It was enforced. Dissent was blasphemy. Doubt was heresy. Inquiry was sin. The few who challenged the system, philosophers, scientists, freethinkers, were silenced, exiled, or executed. The result was centuries of stagnation, where curiosity was punished and ignorance was sanctified. When you look at history through this lens, it becomes clear that religion wasn't built to reveal truth. It was built to maintain order. It provided obedience disguised as morality, conformity disguised as faith, and fear disguised as virtue. Even today, that structure persists. Modern religions have softened their tone, but their logic remains the same. Believe first, question later, or not at all. The emphasis on faith over evidence keeps believers loyal, even when contradictions appear. It teaches that doubt is weakness, not wisdom. Yet doubt is the foundation of all genuine understanding. Think about this. If truth really required faith, science would never have progressed. Nobody believes in gravity by faith. They understand it by evidence. But religion reverses that process. It demands conviction first, then forces the evidence to fit afterward. Belief built backward can justify anything. Throughout history, it justified slavery, holy wars, persecution, and suppression of women and minorities. Each time, religion claimed divine backing, and when time exposed the injustice, it simply rewrote its theology. That's not divine perfection. It's moral evolution, reluctantly catching up to reason. Another revealing point is how religious belief adapts to human progress. When knowledge expands, religion shifts its territory. Once it ruled over creation stories, now it retreats to spiritual meaning. Once it dictated morality, now it calls itself personal faith. As science, psychology, and philosophy explain more, religion rebrands itself to survive. Some believers say, science can't explain everything. True, but that doesn't mean religion can. We don't know yet doesn't justify inventing an answer. Ignorance is temporary. False certainty lasts forever. There's also the issue of religious diversity, which exposes the man-made nature of belief. Every religion claims revelation from the same universal source, yet each describes that source differently. Their gods contradict one another, their doctrines clash, and their histories refute one another's miracles. The simplest explanation isn't that one group found the truth and all others were deceived. It's that they're all human creations reflecting different times and cultures. Even within a single faith, interpretations fracture endlessly. Christianity alone has over 40,000 denominations. Each insists it has the correct version of truth. If divine communication were real, such confusion wouldn't exist. But if religion is human, the chaos makes perfect sense. Psychologically, belief operates through cognitive shortcuts. The brain is a pattern-detecting, story-building machine. It prefers coherent narratives over randomness, even if they're false. Religious belief provides an illusion of understanding. It ties every mystery into a neat cosmic story. That's comforting, but comfort isn't truth. Sociologically, belief functions like an inherited language. People rarely choose their religion after investigation. They receive it by tradition. A child raised in one faith grows up calling that faith truth, while regarding others as false. But if the same child were born elsewhere, their truth would change instantly. This alone shows that religion depends not on divine revelation, but geography. Then there's confirmation bias, the tendency to notice what supports our beliefs and ignore what doesn't. When prayers seem answered, believers credit God. When they fail, they say God works in mysterious ways. Either outcome reinforces the same belief. It's a closed loop, immune to evidence. But that's the crucial point. A belief system that can never be disproved can never be proven either. If every result confirms the claim becomes meaningless, and yet people cling to it, not because they're foolish, but because belief satisfies deep emotional needs. It provides identity, belonging, purpose. It tells people they are loved by the universe. To let go of that illusion feels like losing meaning itself. But meaning doesn't vanish without religion. It becomes more authentic. It shifts from divine command to human choice. Instead of living for an unseen judge, we live for each other. There's another uncomfortable truth. Religion often arises from the fear of death. The promise of an afterlife makes mortality bearable, but hope doesn't equal evidence. Every known trace of consciousness links directly to the brain. When the brain stops, the mind stops. Near-death experiences, dreams, or visions can all be explained neurologically. The comforting stories of heaven or reincarnation persist because they soothe, not because they're true. That's why so many faiths focus on death, not life. They promise eternity, but only if you obey. It's an emotional transaction. Surrender your doubts, follow the rules, and you'll escape mortality. But this trade robs people of the only life they're certain to have, the present one. When you see this clearly, you realize how religion redirects human potential. Instead of building meaning here and now, it defers it to a promised later. Instead of solving real problems, it prays them away. Instead of uniting us as one species, it divides us into tribes of the saved and the lost. History shows the cost. Wars fought in God's name, knowledge suppressed to preserve dogma, human rights denied because they threaten ancient texts. The irony is that religion often violates the very values it claims to uphold: compassion, peace, justice. And yet, even after centuries of bloodshed and contradiction, religion endures. Why? Because institutions have learned how to package faith for modern minds. They market it as community, mindfulness, or spiritual wellness. But behind the softer language, the core claim remains: believe without proof, obey without question. True freedom begins the moment that demand is rejected. The search for truth requires the courage to say, "I don't know." That phrase, honest, humble, open, and is more powerful than any prayer. It invites exploration, not submission. It leads to discovery, not dogma. The absence of God isn't the absence of meaning. It's the presence of possibility. The rise of disbelief isn't a story of rebellion. It's a story of awakening. Humanity didn't abandon gods out of arrogance. It outgrew them through discovery. The history of human progress is, in many ways, the story of how natural explanations replaced supernatural ones. Thousands of years ago, the world was a mystery. People didn't know why the sun rose, why it rained, or why people got sick, so they filled the gaps with spirits and gods. The unknown felt less frightening when it had a face, a will, a reason, even a temper. Religion was an early attempt at science, morality, and government, all mixed together. But once humans began to observe rather than assume, the cracks in those divine stories began to show. The ancient Greeks believed lightning was thrown by Zeus. Then came the discovery of electricity. Plagues were once seen as punishment from heaven. Then germ theory revealed bacteria and viruses. Every explanation that once required divine action was eventually replaced by natural causes. That pattern has never reversed. We've never lost an explanation to religion. It only retreats as understanding advances. Take the creation of life. For centuries, believers claimed that only a god could create living beings from dust. Then Darwin demonstrated how natural selection could produce complexity without design. Evolution showed that order can emerge from simplicity through gradual, cumulative change. It's elegant, logical, and backed by mountains of evidence. And yet, even with all that evidence, resistance persists. Why? Because evolution doesn't just explain life. It dethrones the idea of divine purpose. It reveals that we are products of nature, not the center of it. That truth can feel unsettling, but it's liberating. We are the universe becoming aware of itself, not through divine creation, but through the long, blind process of life adapting to survive. The same is true of the cosmos. Religion once placed Earth at the center of everything, with humans as the pinnacle of creation. Then came Copernicus, Galileo, Kepler, and the illusion shattered. The universe didn't revolve around us. In fact, we are barely a cosmic footnote, orbiting an average star among billions. The scale of the universe alone is enough to dismantle the idea of human-centered design. If a God created all this for us, why is 99.9999% of the universe uninhabitable? Why fill endless galaxies with emptiness and radiation? Why make a cosmos so vast and indifferent that it renders us almost invisible? The facts make sense only in a godless framework, a universe that simply is without intention or plan. And yet, despite this evidence, many still hold on. Because belief isn't just about facts, it's about identity. People don't defend God because they've proven him. They defend him because they've built their lives around the idea. To lose belief feels like losing self. That's why facts alone rarely change minds. You can't reason someone out of a belief that wasn't formed by reason. But reason still matters, because it creates a world where doubt can exist safely. When science replaces superstition, it doesn't just expand knowledge. It expands freedom. It frees people from fear of divine wrath, from the authority of priests, from guilt for simply thinking differently. It allows us to say, we don't need myths to live meaningful lives, and meaning, when it's chosen rather than imposed, becomes far more powerful. Our understanding of consciousness follows the same trajectory. For millennia, people believed the soul was a supernatural essence. Today, neuroscience shows that consciousness arises from brain activity. Every thought, emotion, and memory correlates with physical processes. When the brain is damaged, so is the mind. There's no evidence of a separate, immaterial soul, only a system of neurons producing experience. This doesn't diminish human worth. It enhances it. Because if our minds are natural, then everything beautiful about us, love, art, empathy, curiosity, comes from nature itself. We are not fallen creatures needing redemption. We are evolved beings capable of wonder. Consider how religions explain morality. For centuries, divine command was the standard. Morality came from God's word. But the moment we question that premise, the illusion falls apart. Religious morality shifts with time. Once slavery was permitted, now it's condemned. Once women were property, now they are equals. If morality came from an unchanging God, it would not evolve. Clearly, morality comes from humans, from empathy, reason, and experience. Even the golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated, predates nearly every major religion. It's not divine law, it's human wisdom. Compassion is not proof of God, it's proof of conscience. And conscience, like everything else in us, is a product of evolution. Cooperation helped early humans survive. Those who cared for others thrived as communities. Over time, kindness became instinct. We don't need a commandment to care. Empathy is built into our biology. When we recognize this, we stop seeing goodness as obedience to God and start seeing it as respect for each other. That shift changes everything. It replaces divine morality with human ethics. A system grounded in real consequences, not eternal threats. Another striking proof against the existence of God is the absence of divine innovation. Every technological and moral advancement has come from humans, not revelation. Airplanes, medicine, computers, vaccines, democracy, all born from human minds, not holy texts. If God wanted to guide humanity, why did revelation stop centuries ago? Why does divine knowledge always match the ignorance of the time it's revealed? Ancient scriptures know nothing of germs, galaxies, or genetics. It's almost as if they were written by ancient humans. Because they were. Believers often say their scriptures are timeless. Yet those texts reflect every flaw of their era. Violence, patriarchy, tribalism, superstition. The fact that we have to reinterpret them constantly is evidence that they're not divine. Truth doesn't need constant editing. The more we learn, the clearer it becomes. God is not required for existence, morality, meaning, or purpose. Every system once explained by religion can be explained more accurately, elegantly, and honestly without it. And this realization doesn't lead to despair. It leads to maturity. Humanity's journey away from God is not a fall from grace. It's a rise into understanding. The same curiosity that once invented gods eventually outgrew them. Even now, there are places where questioning faith is dangerous. But history shows that ideas can't be silenced forever. The truth doesn't need protection. Lies do. The more we ask, the less we fear. The less we fear, the freer we become. Freedom from superstition isn't cold or empty. It's filled with wonder. Because when you realize that life is finite, every moment gains value. When you stop waiting for eternity, you start living fully in the present. You care more deeply, love more urgently, and create more passionately. Because you know this is it. The stars above us don't declare the glory of God. They declare the grandeur of reality itself. Vast, ancient, indifferent, yet breathtakingly real. The truth, raw and unfiltered, is more awe-inspiring than any scripture. When you reach the end of this long examination, one realization becomes clear. Disbelief isn't about rejecting hope. It's about rejecting illusion. The idea of God once helped people make sense of a mysterious world. But now that the mysteries have shrunk under the light of knowledge, holding on to the myth does more harm than good. What began as a tool for understanding has become a barrier to it. Let's tie the threads together. Each of the 15 proofs we've explored points to one core truth. The world looks exactly as it would if there were no God at all. There's no trace of divine design in the universe. No moral perfection in sacred texts. No measurable presence in human life. What we do see is human creativity, fear and imagination constructing gods that mirror us, in power, in temperament, and in limitation. When people ask why disbelief exists, they often frame it as a rebellion against meaning. But disbelief doesn't erase meaning, it refines it. It moves it from the supernatural to the real. Instead of life being a test for another world, it becomes an opportunity to shape this one. Instead of morality being a set of divine decrees, it becomes a conscious choice grounded in empathy and reason. Living without God doesn't mean living without wonder. In fact, it deepens wonder. Because the fact that we, fragile, finite beings, can even contemplate existence is astonishing. The realization that our atoms were born in stars, that our minds evolved from lifeless matter, that consciousness emerged from chaos. That is more poetic and profound than any miracle ever written. When believers say that without God life has no purpose, they mistake purpose for instruction. Purpose doesn't have to be given. It can be created. Meaning isn't handed down. It's built through action, connection, and understanding. Every act of kindness, every pursuit of knowledge, every expression of art and love. These are ways we make meaning in a universe that doesn't impose one. Religion promises eternal life but devalues the only life we truly have. It tells people to wait for paradise instead of building it. It teaches that suffering has divine purpose instead of urging us to end it. And in doing so, it steals from us the urgency that makes life meaningful. When you remove that illusion, you begin to see reality with clear eyes. You stop asking the universe to care about you and start caring about it yourself. You realize that morality, beauty, and truth are not gifts from a creator. They're achievements of conscious beings struggling to understand their place in the cosmos. That struggle is sacred in its own way. It's not the holiness of submission, but the nobility of curiosity, the drive to know, to learn, to grow. Every question we ask, every assumption we test, brings us closer to understanding not a God, but ourselves. The proof against God's existence isn't just in logic or science. It's in history, psychology, and human behavior. The gods we worship change, their stories evolve, their moral codes shift. But the one constant is the human mind behind them. Belief moves with culture, language, and politics. That's not divine revelation. That's anthropology. When religion claims universality, it ignores the diversity of human invention. Every holy text contradicts the next. Every doctrine promises certainty and delivers division. The wars, inquisitions, and persecutions that followed were not the result of too little faith. They were the result of faith itself. The moment we believe our truth is sacred and beyond question, we stop listening, stop thinking, and start controlling. The decline of religion doesn't mean the decline of morality. It means its evolution. Secular societies consistently show higher levels of education, equality, and well-being. They don't need fear of hell to act decently, or belief in heaven to find joy. They act morally because empathy and cooperation make life better for everyone. This isn't coincidence. It's evidence that goodness is natural, not supernatural. And as belief fades, humanity begins to take ownership of problems once blamed on fate or divine will. Disease becomes a medical issue, not punishment. Poverty becomes solvable, not a test of faith. Natural disasters become opportunities for preparation, not repentance. The more responsibility we claim, the more progress we make. In a world without gods, accountability returns to its rightful place, with us. We can no longer say God will fix it. We have to fix it. We can no longer comfort ourselves with it's part of a plan. We must make a better plan ourselves. That's the power of disbelief. It replaces dependency with responsibility, turns prayer into action, guilt into growth, and submission into freedom. It doesn't make life easier, it makes it real. And reality, though sometimes harsh, is always more honest than illusion. There's also something profoundly moral about letting go of falsehood. When we stop pretending to know what we don't, we create space for truth. When we stop claiming divine authority, we open the door to humility. And when we stop dividing people by belief, we allow compassion to expand beyond boundaries. Belief in God once served a purpose. It offered comfort in chaos, unity in tribes, hope in despair. But like every early invention, it's been surpassed. The wheel wasn't abandoned. It was improved. Belief doesn't need to be destroyed. It needs to evolve into understanding. Humanity doesn't need gods to be good or to love, to build, to explore. We need only ourselves, our reason, our empathy, our shared desire to make meaning. When you strip away the myths, what's left isn't emptiness. It's everything. The night sky becomes more beautiful when you know what stars really are. The earth becomes more precious when you understand how rare it is. Love becomes more sacred when you realize it's fleeting. Mortality doesn't diminish life's value. It creates it. That's what religion never understood. That fragility is what makes things precious. Eternity cheapens meaning. Infinity erases urgency. The knowledge that we will end is what drives us to live. So what does a world without God look like? It looks like humanity taking responsibility for its own future. It looks like kindness without condition, knowledge without fear, progress without permission. It's a world where questions are not dangerous, and answers are not forbidden. It's a world where awe is not reserved for the supernatural, but felt in the real, in the vastness of space, the complexity of life, the quiet moments between people who care. The truth is, we don't need a creator to feel gratitude for existence. The fact that anything exists at all is enough reason to be amazed. We don't need a divine plan to have purpose. We make our own every day. We don't need heaven to value goodness. Goodness is its own reward. 15 proofs can dismantle belief in God, but they do something deeper. They remind us that reality, on its own, is enough. It doesn't need embellishment or myth. It's more extraordinary than any story written about it. And when we finally accept that, life stops being a test or a waiting room. It becomes a canvas, brief, fragile, but ours. There's no divine author writing our fate. The pen has always been in our hands,